Thank you all for being here, and thank you, Ashish. It gives me great pleasure to have this chat amongst many, many people, and after a long time. So let's jump into it straight away. How do you define collectible design? What is collectible design? We are sitting in front of this new pavilion, and obviously there's a lot of interest in this phrase. So, how do you define it? What makes collectible design?
First of all, I think it's incredible that they've managed to pull this off. When they came to me first, I was like, this looks tough. But the way the curation of the brands is incredible. Each one stands for their own aesthetic, and that starts collectible, right? Collectible is originality. What it takes to be that one standout, which nowhere nobody else can find that anywhere else, right? So we can't find it anywhere else. And also you see trickles of it in the other booths, where you start seeing people using your or their aesthetic and that going down into a much more massier scale. And that's where collectible starts from. But it also is much deeper than that. It starts from a practice, like what does a practice stand for? What does a belief of the practice stand for? What is the ethos? What is the language? What's the materiality? And why does the artist slash designer choose to make it a collectible and not just something that's available?
So you've had a very successful practice, being an architect, interior designer. What made you choose this path of actually making these special objects and pieces of furniture and even little bits of jewelry, which I just saw? Why have you gone down this path, and what is driving you?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I think it started long time ago. I always wanted to be an artist.
Yeah.
And actually more of a sculptor than an artist. And I used to sketch sculpture, and I used to always do these drawings which are now on the carpets. But they were about 20, 30 years ago, but then I never knew what I was doing. And then it just so happened that I happened to become a dentist and then moved into architecture. So it's been a very abstract journey. But that said, the idea of being a sculptor moved me, towards this journey. I wanted to be able to create form in my own way, and create that and bring function into it. And somehow it led to design. I don't know, it's just stumbled into that world. Also, like you, I've been collecting art for a long time and from a very young age. And seeing that and looking at those practices and understanding how that world functions, I wanted to bring that into my domain. And somewhere down the line, it kind of...
So I see your pieces are partly arty and art, and because they're sculptural, but partly they're also functional design, right? Your totem is are more sculptural forms rather than being any particular function.
They open up as function, yeah.
Yeah, they can. Okay,
Yeah.
bigger as multiple stools. So do have a look at those totems. So what is your process? Because you said that when we talked earlier, that you work exclusively with artisans and looking at crafts across like India. So tell us a bit about what your studio process and what it goes in making of these pieces. And I know some of them have a long gestation too.
Yeah. So I think the process is, there are multiple different processes. Sometimes it's just a form that I've always worked on, like as a totem. And then I find a craft and then we say that let's make a prototype and send it to the village. Like you'll see one stool here, which is, you're talking about, it's going to Odisha right now because it's a prototype of a totem that will be made out of Kansa. And sometimes you see a craft, like I saw a Shola pit, and I've created a totem looking at that craft backwards. So form was created post that, that last in the PDF, you see that, where you see a bit of, and what I like to do is mix two crafts now. So Shola pit from Bengal and then rice paper from Ahmedabad, Gujarat, coming together into one piece. And then how that mixes, and I don't know how it works in terms of, I have lots of those head thoughts about latitudes and how they kind of meet in the east and west, but they're all actually kind of narratives in my head.
Okay. And then what about selling these pieces? How do they become collectibles? How do you think they can become collectibles? I mean, in India, of course, the collecting ecosystem is still, it's in infancy.
Yeah.
Collecting design, let me say, collecting generally is far more well established. So, how do you see the ecosystem in India? How do you see where do you place yourself internationally? And I know you are in a couple of galleries. How easy or difficult is it to do that process? I mean, because that's there's so many young designers who may have that potential, in 5 or 10 years. So, what's
So, I want to divide it into two parts. One is the whole idea of collecting design, and one idea of taking your practice globally. I think art and design today, world over, and now even in India, the brackets are blurring. A lot of artists are making design. A lot of designers are moving towards arts or art-like pieces. The only thing that separates them, in my eyes, is function. But if you kind of keep that as a very abstract notion, then it's very fluid. Then the other thing that defines it is how are they unique? Are they editions? How does someone who's collected them find value with it? Certification, provenance, all of that, where it's being sold. And these are things I learned from the art world, saying that you don't just sell it, sell it with a purpose. Sell it with the fact that it goes into collections of people who will be collecting serious art, or into museums, or into curatorial journeys. And what I tried to do initially, and as I started this process, my first bench was the Lingam bench, and it was very, very a part of the process of a home that I was designing. And my client pushed me. She's like, you must do this. And she's a collector and of art. And then she kind of felt that I should be pushed towards bench. And that's when the first Lingam bench came up. That piece I showed at the India Art Fair that year with Nature Mott, and it's just editions of 12. And by the time I entered the art fair, Prajita says, do you know, we sold all 12 editions. And it was very exciting, and where it went, right? From artists like Subodhan Bharti to all the major collectors bought the piece, and they saw the value in it, and that's when I started understanding that this could be a journey. So after that, the next 2 or 3 years later, my next piece was done.
But I want to pause here. So does this mean with this process and the way it is marketed, then all your pieces are expensive pieces? I mean, how does the pricing all that work? Because does collectible design have to be expensive?
I don't think so. I think our booth is right here, and I mean, you're free to look at the prices, and I feel like I think in every booth around here, I enjoyed this room a lot. I think each designer is so beautiful, and the work is so intense, and I feel like the prices are very comparable and sometimes lesser than the booths that are on the other side of this hall. And yeah, and I felt like that was very encouraging, right? Like I felt like when you bring real practices together, and the best part about this is you're not buying a piece of furniture or design, you're buying a piece of a practice. And that's very important.
And the narrative.
And the narrative, right? And that's where it really comes from.
And that each piece tells a story and hopefully has longevity.
And journey of the designer behind, right? Like, so if you're buying, say, for example, a Pinakin piece, there is a journey behind it and why you're buying that.
Okay. And what about internationally? We were talking about that. How you see yourself there? Where are you positioning?
That was this glass ceiling that I did make. It was very, very tough. It took a couple of years for us to understand how that market worked, because we didn't have a path that I could follow. But I can't say that they were waiting for me. But we worked really hard to find our positioning there. But the journey started with curators. A lot of curators that I knew from the art world started putting my pieces into curatorial shows internationally, from where they noticed my work, galleries noticed my work, and then that's how we started getting recognized. And I feel we just got the major gallery last year Invisible collection just came. Before that, we were working with galleries, but much smaller galleries. But our galleries, the major galleries internationally now, we are selling because of them in 5 different locations around the world. Happened just a year ago, and things have changed dramatically for us after that. I think a lot of things have. We're working with the biggest architects around the world, commissioning for them. We're doing custom work. We're doing unique pieces for them, and we're doing works where you have a Jeff Koons original huge sculpture and a light of ours above. So we're very excited for that.
So, so you've also been a collector,
Yeah.
right? And I'm sure you've collected design too.
Yeah.
So what apart from your own design? So tell me a few of your favorite pieces in your collection.
You wouldn't. I mean, Noguchi has been my role model, and I think I'm trying to follow that path of. When you look back today, Noguchi is like so ahead of his time, and what he did for design in general for the world, he actually is the master of that pathway. And whatever I can find and afford of Noguchi is probably in my collection. But I collect mid-century mainly. But one designer that I was really, not my aesthetic, but something that I really connect with was Ettore and Sota.
Yeah.
And I remember buying a few of his pieces about 12 years ago. And then I just so happened to open up a part of my collection and review pieces that I'm doing. And you'd be surprised, Priya, that the one that I bought 12 years when I completely forgot was a small totem designed by Ettore. And it's so magically kind of brings back that memory, and now I feel like somewhere down the road, it was somewhere in my subconscious.
That you had to do the totems.
Yeah.
And I know you're now doing a major exhibition of totems
Of India, yeah.
representing craft from India. So
yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing that sometime soon. So, but why the totem? And apart from this memory that you had?
I think they're very celebratory. And working with crafts was very tough. It's been a 8-9 year journey now, which started as an R&D cell mainly
For your own project?
for the projects, and the product started just about 3-4 years just before lockdown. We started working on product, so I feel like it's the journey has been very tough, and to celebrate that, we said let's do totems.
Okay. So 2023 is a celebration year for you, Ashish, of course. And I'm going to close now. We have no time for questions because that's not part of the format. But, at the end. And I know Ashish has a flight to catch. So thank you, Ashish. Lovely chat.
Thank you.